Welcome to all the participants of today's webinar. We have quite a few people who have joined us already, and it's time to begin. This is a new webinar series that we have just started, largely aimed towards small-scale entrepreneurs, freelancers, solopreneurs, as we like to call them, people who would rather work independently, work on a small scale, but really pack the big punch, deliver when it comes uh, to delivering world class or maybe even top notch products and deliverables to their clients. I think what Agnello has really done this time is tuned his webinars towards us, and really thank you, Agnello, for opening up this new webinar series for us, especially for entrepreneurs like me. I think the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis are not really different, as we were discussing, not really different from those faced by large individuals and large corporates, but working at a small scale and working at a solopreneur level, uh, the resources that we really have in order to tackle these situations and to address these issues are not really at our you know at our beck and call, so as to say. So, thank you so much. And without taking much of your time, I would really like to open this webinar and invite questions that will come through the series, through the webinars. You guys can put up your question in the chat box, and Agnello will take them up towards the end. Also, towards the right after the webinar, the presentation is over, we will be taking Q&A. We'll be having a small conversation with Agnello. So before Agnello could begin, I just want to take a minute to talk a little bit about Procademy. Now, what Procademy does is a knowledge and research-based institute providing technical and behavioral skills to individuals, both at the corporate level as well as at an individual level. So right from organizations to people who really want to hone their skills and you know uh, tune their behavior in a way that could further their career. Procademy has programs and workshops that will be organized for you. And during this lockdown, we also are organizing a couple of webinars across functions, across divisions, across verticals. So everyone who is interested can surely sign up for our webinars, and Agnello, along with a couple of guest speakers, will be more than happy to share their experience, to share their wisdom, and to share ideas and discuss these ideas. Also, if any one of you would like to be a part of a webinar, come on board, talk to us, and be a panelist on a webinar, please more than welcome to do so. Just drop in your name. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn, and check our website out, which is procademy.co.in. Procademy.co.in. You can follow us on Facebook, and it's called Procademy Consultancy. Procademy Consultancy. Facebook.com/Procademy Consultancy or LinkedIn.com/company/Procademy Consultancy. So you guys can surely hit us up over there. One of us will be ready to respond to you. So I'm not going to take much of your time, Agnello. This is me. I'll see you guys at the end of the webinar. So Agnello, why don't you take it forward from here?
Sure. Thank you, Savio. Good evening, friends, and let me begin. It's a very interesting topic, and I think the COVID situation has thrown a very different light the way businesses are going to happen now, and it's going to happen not for today or few months, but I guess it's going to be the trend and the norm. But one of the burning issues which we have always seen is we do speak about in the corporate world a lot about entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship within the organization, or entrepreneurship when we talk externally in the market. So, a lot of these budding entrepreneurs, and I'm not talking about the size right now, because an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur, whether he is individual or with group of people, but they are all entrepreneurs. Uh, there are up to a number of challenges that I see that comes. when you start a new business. And I had seen myself when we had started our business uh, when we were pretty small. So what I'm trying to say is there are challenges that will come, and we'll have to see how we can manage these pieces. So today I'm going to talk about retaining clients. How do you retain your clients, right? That's a very big challenge for small setups, budding organizations, organizations who are just setting foot forward. And one of the problems that I have seen is aplenty. But we'll try and understand this aspect today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about uh, how do you understand the problem statement. So let me understand the problem statement. So there are a few problems that I have enumerated on the presentation that I'm going to talk about, but there is some which you can always put it up to me in the Q&A and update me, and I can add on to it. So let's understand the problem statement. Second, I'm going to talk about, let's understand your organization, your management, and your client. What are the two things that one looks at? And one of the three areas which I have picked up where generally what organizations look at is your customer handling, your contracting, and your experience. And that's where the cookie crumbles, as they say. And then we'll talk about retention challenge. So why is this retention challenge? Whole cauldron of retention. Why clients actually move away from you, or what challenges you see in managing it. And finally, we'll try and give you some recommendations. Now, entire presentation is my own personal experience, so I'm not going to refer to any management jargons or management philosophies. This is pure 25 years of my own experience when I've been at the front end of the corporate world, and now as an entrepreneur in the last 1.5 or 2 years, and the journey that I have traversed. And this is what I have seen it, and I'm going to put it up because when I was at the other side, too, we were experiencing the similar journey. The only thing was that there was a huge backup. So let me begin. It's almost 5:08 now, so I'll try and cover this entire session in the next 40 minutes or so, and post that whatever queries and Q&A you have, please send it across, and I'll try and respond to you today. It's right now in this session itself, right? So let me begin. So what are your challenges? Now, some of these challenges I have seen, which generally, and in the last 1 week that I've been talking to a lot of budding entrepreneurs and small-time organization CEOs, and even now CEOs, when I say founders, literally they're founders, they're CEOs, and they are either a 5-man team, 1-man team, or some of them are 50-man team, and some of them are 400, 500 people team who are at loss today as to how do we really move in the COVID scenarios. But a general problem persists. So is pricing strategy a problem? What is the challenges which we see is pricing. Competition, yeah, there are far too many players that are competing now in the same space, right? Digital is the way forward, as they say. Infrastructure, do you need to have big offices, or do you need to have a big setup to start this whole business venture? One of the very challenging aspect is being small, you can't have all functions of management with you. So there are a lot of outsourced management functions which are there. So are they engaged enough with you? So there is always a question of service and trust element that comes here. The whole emphasis on marketing and sales, right? How much you can really spend on marketing? How much is it that you can go from channel to channel, door to door to do selling? So do you have the enough manpower, the reach to capture? The other challenge comes is financial investment. So most of the entrepreneurs are self-finance professionals, right? Most of us are self-finance, or some of them would be trying to get a PE to invest if the idea is good. Then the other challenge that is I see is time to deliver, right? Customers want it ASAP. So do you have the systems, the processes, the various elements of supply chain to really deliver on time? And the other most important thing is the competence. Yeah, competence skill, when we talk about multitasking, multi-services oriented, do you think you have that kind of a support system? So these are some of the challenges which I see are pretty there with people. Is there any other challenge do you think I have not covered? Please write it in the chat box. I can really add on to it. Because this is predominantly, I see the challenge when you're really starting out, because you have a market to reach out to, you have a customer to reach out to, you have a growth strategy that is so important for you to really scale up, right? And your timeline. So is there, yes, Srivat has rightly said, it's regulatory. This becomes the biggest challenge, especially if you're trying to set up an organization, whether it is in financial sector or any other sector. Regulatory challenges are very high because the time and effort required. I remember talking to a very big CEO just the other day. I asked him what was one area which, when he started and moved out from that NBFC and was starting to start an NBFC, what was one painful area for him? He told me, Agnello, none of the other problems are more important than the regulatory problem, because the effort required was just too much. And me doing all alone. I was a secretary, I was the documenting person, I was the one who was going and filing with the registrars, with the regulatory authorities, making my own presentation to these boards and trying to convince them. So that is something which was more painful. Very rightly said by Srivats, regulatory challenge. Is there any other challenges which you see becomes very difficult for you to manage when you are just starting out, right? Please, you can keep writing. I'll take it up as you do. The other thing is, what are your other challenges? What was your client challenges? So how do your clients? Yes, high demand from investors. Yeah, investors are very nice at first. They are like your, they treat you as a new bride. The first day, the first week is very nice. After that, it's back to basics, as they call it. So constantly there is a questioning that happens, and I've seen this many times becoming a very big challenge. So let's see, what does your client wants? The client expectations are very different. Most of the time, while the client will talk from a price value perspective, where he says ki the pricing strategy of yours is really, because he's evaluating you, he's seeing how much can you really go down to. At the same time, he's also comparing you, and so it's okay, can you give me as of yesterday? You know, then he says, okay, can you look at, let's put a timeline for it. I am sure when you know you're just starting out, you're experiencing the kind of experience that you may carry, you're getting into an unknown territory for the first time, it looks like, and therefore that time your tact for response becomes a big challenge. Then there is also a client asking you, okay, can you give me a lot of options? Can you give me choices? Can you give me solutions a lot? Now, every solution requires a lot of element of research and analysis and data. You just can't pick up the magic wand and say, okay, look, this can be done. Especially when you're looking, whether you're looking at consulting based services, or you're looking at product, or you're looking at pure solutions, yeah, open-ended. Then the challenge comes comparative analysis of quality. Many a times I've seen a lot of small-time entrepreneurs of relying on their experience and relying on the years of time spent as a part of quality. That may not be true. Quality is not defined by that. Quality has got a different name, and every client's quality expectations are different. But that's another challenge or expectation I see from the client coming up. What are the value-added services you can give us? They generally look for bouquet of services. How often are you able to give this bouquet of services? And one of the other thing is involvement. They're trying to test you, how involved are you? Because many a time it so happens that they want to know how much is your bandwidth, how much is your reach, how well spread are you, therefore how much is your involvement in terms of reaching out and giving out the solutions. Because at one level, they say when you have to open the door, it may open because you have got, maybe you're a brand as an individual and you're a brand as an experience. But beyond that, the client always wants to know whether he is your best of the best colleagues or best of the best friend, or he is a reference of yours. He would like to see what is the involvement you have that you will give me the solution that I desire, right? This is where your client is expecting from. Is there any other expectation, do you think? Yeah, please share. That would be great. Yeah. Yes. Clients is, how different are you from what is already available? And that's $1 million question. Sometimes I have seen today when I go out, for example, and I see it from myself, how different is what you're proposing, what is called as development, right? So the differentiator is another challenge that comes to you, because at the beginning of your any entrepreneur, he's coming with a stated experience. He's coming with a stated knowledge of the market. But what is very important to see, and we will see that during the course of this presentation, is what is the difference you're making to the same experience, right? Yes, Yashad is telling being available 24 into 7. That's another challenge that you see with small time entrepreneurs, that they are expected to be available 24 into 7 into 365 or 360 days that you call it. That's a phenomenal challenge. How can you? And you're in no position to say no, right? You're in no position to say no, we don't work. I remember talking to a very good brand organization agency, and we were looking out for a very big brand organization. And these were 4 or 5 budding entrepreneurs who have come together from, known brand organizations to form a brand agency. And the only question we had in mind was, how available are you? And they told us we don't work on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and Fridays is a weekend for us. Though they were highly competent, I don't remember we engaged them again. Now, it could be stupid, but I think clients' expectations are very different, and that's another challenge that you see. But how you need to manage that? Yeah, you need to manage that. So let me go back to the basics, as you call it, and let me understand from a very different perspective to see how we can manage our expectations. So what does your organization look like? Let's see, when you start off, what does your organization look like? Generally, an organization is having a broad vision. You build a very strong vision, saying what are you planning to do. You create a purpose, right? When you're doing a vision, means what? You're trying to create a purpose of why are you there? What is the purpose that you have for being an organization? You create an identity for yourself. And vision is always also a brand statement, right? It's a brand statement. And you see that happening many a times. Most of you who have started your firm or part of corporate organization, there is a vision. Because vision is a purpose, it's a destination, right? You want to be at a certain level of your organization's journey. Then we talk about what are the services, what are the solutions, what are the product offerings that we have, right? We try to give a direction to what I can do for you. What do I have as a solution to the problem, right? The third we look at is the experience behind creating this organization. Please remember, a customer sees the experience behind that, because he or she knows the person who's heading, or the team that is heading this, do they have the kind of bandwidth of experience? Experience is a maturity also, right? And when you talk about various solutions and various products, they immediately relate it to your experience. And that's how you would say, when you are going out, what's the experience like? What has been the work, the body of work, as I always call it. The next is the skill. Skill is a differentiator. It tells the person, look, this person understands this language, understands the challenges, understands how the physiology or the psychology of the solutions being spoken about is evolved or created, right? So those are the practice areas that we generally see with budding entrepreneurs and startup people when they go out. And this is where your brand will come now. Okay, when I say brand, means this is where your brand as an individual will come, because now you will be talking from an individual perspective to the vision and the mission that you have created. And that is most important. So the skill will become a conversation. And the last that will come is the pricing. Your pricing strategy has to be very clearly defined, right? It cannot be where I can say I'll get back to you, or I'll let you know types, or I'll try to evolve different pricing strategy for different customer types. Yes, it could be a strategy where you do that, but on a large scale, on a broader scale, your pricing strategy has to be linked, has to be relevant, has to be in line with what the market is offering. If it is something different, then the differentiator, as someone told earlier, will make a lot of difference. Yeah, the differentiator has to be speaking loudly. Then your vision must be the differentiator. Your solutions must be the differentiator. That's when the pricing will make a lot of sense. So broadly, when you are setting up your organization, these I see as a cornerstone of the pillars of setup. Let's understand, what does the client look at it? Let's understand, how does the client see you? The client sees you from, very importantly, the ability to communicate by you. What does this organization stand for, and how does it engages with you? How will it engage? So what are the ways and means your philosophy of communication is going to come out with? The next is customer centricity. Now this is the most important thing, and I'm going to talk about this little more in the next slides. But right now, I just want to park this thought with you. Customer centricity is not customer service. Please remember that. Customer centricity is about understanding what your customer wants from his perspective and then catering the solutions accordingly. So you may have a stated product or you may have a stated services that may or may not go well with the customer's needs, but can align to some parts or some elements of customer's need. Is your organization aware of that kind of customer need? Then only you'll be able to look at customer centricity far strongly. Now let's look at, if you look at brands in our country like Tata's, or for that matter Hindustan Unilever, these are the two brands who have been surviving all weather and storms, right? And you have seen the kind of conversations they have with your customers, engaging through any medium that they do. It is always seen customer first, thinking from the customer's need and evolving the products accordingly. Now that is how you look at customer centricity, and I'll talk about it more. Just hold on to that. Then comes the experience, and the experience is not your experience. Experience is what they'll experience you when they engage with you. Experience is when they'll see what you state and what you give. What is your vision, and what is the experience of engaging, interacting, contracting with this vision of yours. And that time, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, they will be talking only to the brand. They won't know you, they won't talk to you, but they'll say, yes, I had a bad experience of engaging with this organization, or I had an excellent engagement. Though there could be not satisfactory service, but the experience of engagement will make a lot of difference. And that will speak a lot of volumes about your brand, right? The next is recall. Recall is when you have given the service. Recall is when you have provided the solution. Recall is when you have implemented the solutions to the person. And in a smaller setup, this becomes very crucial because it's a very engaged, very close connected services. It's not a large organization that we are talking about. A small setup, very well entrenched. And generally you start off with one contact in that organization. And then how do you, as they say, the Chinese whispers, how do you spread in the organization? Sometimes organization deal with one vendor or two vendors or three vendors, even at a large conglomerate, to a large years, many years, but they won't change till the time the person is tired of not able to give times, because their experience, the recall has been excellent. How sensitive are you to that will make a lot of difference. So therefore, when we look at your organization, one side is left hand side. If you look at to your right would be the management, right? And the left is your experience, right? This is how you manage your client, right? This is how your client sees you. You have created a very great organization, but at the back end, when the client sees you from two lenses. Here is a management of this great organization which came to us, promised us, and here is the experience they have given us. That's where the game is all, right? I remember one of a very strong brand company approaching when I was in the corporate, and they were just three men set up. From 2007 to 2018, 19 that I was 18, I was there to, we used that brand company exclusively. At the time when they started, the first job they did was for 70,000 rupees. The last job they did was for 75 lakhs. I'm talking about one event. Now, like this, throughout the year we were engaging, so the average billing was anywhere between 2.2 to 3 CR And from one client, they had grown into almost 10 permanent clients. Floating clients were there. And I'll talk about floating clients to you later. That's how you look at it. That's how you build your organization. That's how you build your clients. And that's how your client looks at you. Because a client is the center of your universe. Now let me talk about the next thing, which I said about customer centricity. Why it is very critical. What does it mean? So customer centricity is about the problem statement. So when you approach the client, ask for the problem statement. Don't jump, you know, don't jump into the solutions immediately. Understand the problem statement. So listen carefully, spend time listening. Then relate that experience, what the customer has, with the experience that you have. And I'm sure most of us will experience the same experience what the customer is experiencing. We need to really have to relate the experience. Have empathy during the time when you're listening. Listening is important, but having empathy is important because that connects your response and your listening. That also tells that you're listening right. Right? And it's many times I've met so many top-notch consultants, they don't allow you to speak. They just keep on talking. They don't allow you to talk. That's not what it's called customer-centric being. Listening to the customer, understanding what the customer wants, what his pain area is, and where is that pain area emanating from, yeah? Potential solutions. While talking, conversing, give potential solutions. Okay, we can do this. You think we can do this? Yeah, yeah. That's like agreeing to disagree, but agreeing to agree, disagreeing to agree. Why? Because you're giving some solutions in between also. The conversation is going on. It's not a one-way traffic. I don't think anyone will talk one way. Either the customer or you will ever have any solution at the end of the day. But when we keep on acknowledging each other's, that becomes a communication. Reliability. Remember one thing, whenever you give a solution, talk about the merits and the demerits. Don't just talk about the merits. That's it, being very enterprising oriented, because you're really being very practical about it. Saying, yeah, this has got this kind of merits. These are its features. This it does, but at the same time, it can also be causing this problem or could be not able to scale up to this level. So you're already creating a perspective and you're giving a perspective to the customer of various options that you have, right? It's not like saying, okay, I'll go with this option. Give all multiple options, but with the merits and the demerits. Bring reliability. Whenever researches are done, reliability and validity is the only way where you can say, yeah, why is COVID solution not coming up? Because everybody is waiting for reliability, right? And reliability will only come by next year. Today they are just testing. So though everyone is claiming we have found, but it's saying do the reliability test. Let it get proven. The other is relativity. What is the consistency in your products and services? Are you able to relate to the experience that the customer is talking about? What is his proposition is? And are you building consistency in that? Relate with that. Yeah. Probing. Can you look at probing? Get more probing. Engage more. Engage more. Find out more details. Get to the bottom of it. Don't just conclude, yes, this. Then what will happen when you go back and you give a solution, the customer may recall, oh yes, I forgot to tell you this. Can you change this? Then it goes into what is known as analysis by paralysis mode. Don't get into that. Probe at the time of discussion only. Get into the discussion. Understand every aspect. So that when you come back, the change element should not be more than 5 to 10%. If it's going to be more than 20%, then you will be spending more time in trying to only create solutions. And if the customer gets another ready-made solution somewhere, he will just pick it up and take that. Right? That's what's happened. So avoid that. Avoid that. Yeah. Then speak about the experience. When you finally close it, then you must talk about your own experiences there. Yeah. Relate it. Now that you have understood, relate it. So this is your very integrity part. Why I'm calling it integrity? Because whatever experience you share will be very relevant. Will be relevant experience. And it will be genuine experience. Customers can read through you. Customers can read through you. You're not giving, you have seen so many of the sales pitches that happen sometimes, really put you off because they're all 36,000 feet above. Get into the ground. Keep it basic. Keep it simple. Let the simplicity get evolved over the advancement when during the case of conversations with the client and not just, talking off the cuff. So when it comes, now I'll talk about contract services. This is most interesting and this is where the problem I see comes also. Every time when you make a contract, it is always 60%, I believe. The reason for that is 60% is stated. You have got targets, you have got pricing, everything done 60%. That's your proposals. You must factor in the 40%. What about the unstated? Have you ever realized that when the experience is good, a customer will want more? And then you say, yeah, don't worry, just to retain the client, you say, don't worry, I'll do it. Don't worry, I'll do it. Then what are you doing? You're committing. That is your unstated services, which is always there in every contract. And for that, you need to have a good pricing and a good TAT strategy. Otherwise, you will be left burdened with many unsolved services. The priority services will get a back end, and the non-priority will get killed in. And you know very well, everyone wants to have a padding. अरे यार ये करो तो ये भी दे दो ना थोड़ा यार ये भी करो. Like it's like, you know, when you go to buy vegetables, like you try to buy one vegetable and you try to ask something else free. Not because he will give, you're just trying to see if you can get it. Now this what happens, the client when he sees that, okay, you're giving a good product and services, sometimes he gets into these unstated services mode, and that's 40% until it becomes. And that can take a lot of stress onto your contract. So again, your contract services needs to have these kind of factoring done also. And the third one is the experience. Now another part in experience, when you look at contractual experience, 60% it is assumed trust, because you have already stated. What gets into 100% or what gets you into recall is the reliable trust, and that is the non-contractual experience, and which I stated, the unstated experience. And there, in your unstated contractual experience, you got to be very assertive. And when I say assertive, that okay, look, I'll be able to do this, but yeah, I'll need this much of time, and for this effort, I'll require this kind of cost. You got to be very clear on that, and got to do it very gently, very softly, and very nicely. But don't say, okay, don't worry, I'll take care. You don't worry. You have put the customer at so ease and so comfortable position that tomorrow when you want to accommodate him, he will say, what the hell? How can you raise such a big price? Don't get into that trap. The clarity here is very important. And let me tell you, the contract is priority. The unstated is an added service. But you are willing to give it. But at the same time, be very clear about it. And that will give you a reliable trust. That will also tell the client, look, this guy doesn't promise me in the air. I have met a lot of people who promise a lot, you know, don't worry, we'll take care of it. We'll give you this, we'll give you that. This will take care of this. But what about the ROI? What about the pricing model of that? And then suddenly you have, you know, sent a bill, and then you start wondering, oh God, did I make a mistake of asking this guy? And then the trust goes down. Why? Because you might have done genuinely, and you would have put that effort, and that service would have required that price. But the problem is the customer was not aware. He went by your word. So define that, differentiate that, clearly clarify that. There's no harm. I'm not telling you to say no. You don't have to say no to it. But I'm saying the way to say yes is get it assertively done. And that sometimes I have seen, I myself have done it. I myself have felt when I see a good customer, a good vendor, and I'm sure he's good, I tend to give more and more to him because I want him to do it. But at the same time, I'm trying to escape my insecurities by giving it to him. But if the guy doesn't tell me the pricing, then I don't know. And when finally shoots up the bill, then I find trust issues with it. Oh, that's because I had a desperate need. Now this guy is pricing me high price. Be very clear in that. That's another area where it really goes down. Yeah. So then next part is why there is a challenge then. So still, why retention is a challenge? You have any idea why retention is a challenge then? Yeah, anybody? Anybody can tell me? Why retention is a challenge then? When you have defined everything, if at all there is anything, why does the challenge come still? You can give in your responses over here. Can you think? I'm doing everything right. I have a good management setup. I'm taking care of the stated and the unstated. Still the problem comes. And I still find clients running away from me, clients not being happy with me, or they're demanding too much of services with me. I don't know how to prioritize. What you need to do then when such kind of challenge comes up is revisit the problem statement, right? You had made a problem statement, right? What was the problem statement agreed upon? Revisit that. Did you factor in? Go back to the customer, go back to the client and look, this is what we had agreed. Is there anything that we had missed out here? I thought you were very clear over here. Get the answer again. And remember one thing, whenever you're making a proposal, whenever you're trying to give a solution, keep a buffer. I'm telling, don't keep 20%, keep 40%. Because for small setups, it's always 40%. Because the small setup really want to know, they want to have as much as solutions as what somebody else will give. So Ashish is saying it was transaction, they move on. That's what happens. Most of the time your client moves away because it was a transaction, so they move on. And that's so true, right? So keep your 40% buffer in your services. That because those crises will come, because when you are small and when you're starting up, there is always the testing that they check. अरे भाई इसको दे दो यार, देख ले तो कर लेगा यार. You know, like that attitude is always there. Again, I'm telling you, you agree to disagree, but engage to agree. Because I'm saying, if a client is demanding something more, fair enough, no problem. I know you don't may not agree with it, but there's no need to disagree. But yeah, disagree with an agree. Talk to the client back, saying yes, buddy, this is what it is. This is going to be the cost, and this is going to be the TAT. Yeah, that's so important. It doesn't go. It will be a 2-second or I have seen one. I know one very good. Then the same brand company that I'm talking about. One of the very hallmark of this CEO of this organization was, he was a best friend of mine and known to me, same community from where I come from, the Christian. And but yeah, he had a very good buddy. But you know what? I really feel we should do this. Or you're asking more, but you know, this will require this kind of effort. I'm sure you understand. Because he had enumerated his effort organization, I could understand when he said, so okay, I should send the proposal. Get that thing going. Don't assume that you have a very good relationship so that a person will understand you and he'll pardon you. No, that is not going to happen. Make it a point to communicate that. And do it subtly, gently, no problem. Always remember, when you're talking about products and your services, remember your products and services and identity, they are moldable. So solutions are to be moldable, right? They can be molded. They can be as per the need. In one of the areas, like I came from banking sector and financial sector. I remember whenever we sold loans, one of the things that we told our employees, don't sell the loan. Sell the need that the person has. It could be that he may not need the kind of money that he wants, but he may be requiring the money for something very small. Explain to the person how he can manage within that money. If somebody is asking you for 50 lakhs, you can still give him 20 lakhs and meet his need. Because the customer is not able to understand, is the price of 50 lakh is correct or wrong? Now, if you are an organization who's going to provide some services, you got to explain your solutions, how it will cater to. So there is a benchmark which you have created, which is fine. But that can be evolved because every customer need is different. There cannot be a universal product, right? We can't have a universal policy, just like as our country. It doesn't have a universal policy which says we will deal with X country in this manner. All is a stated, unstated relativity. Respond and follow up. One of the biggest drawback of customer going away from you is many a time we do not believe in engaging with the customer. But when we are small, I've seen in smaller setups, since it's an SME mode, outsourcing is done on a large scale because all the services you're not managing, all the management functions are not with you. You tend to leave it to your network to manage the response, which is absolutely wrong. When you are bringing in your value-added services partner, you need to be at the front end of the communication. You need to be at the front end of the negotiation. You need to be at the front end of the table of contracting. Don't allow your partner to manage the whole piece. If you allow your partner to manage, then the problem will be acute. Yeah. Yes. Srivat also says know your customer very well. I think yes, that's one of the, and that's why I'm saying when you're visiting the problem statement, means you know your customer's problems. You know the customer, what is he catering to, which sector, what segment, what type of clients. and not only the problem. Understand the relativity of the problem, and I'll talk about it in the next slide when we really talk about it. So, few realities, and I want you to accept the fact that why your clients go away. These are the facts. For small scale firms, I will be very honest. Please expect it is staying in the vision, which is critical. Strategies can be adopted, right? That's being a true visionary organization. We can't be fixated in our strategies. Our vision is long term, not short term. If you are in for a short term, then you are going to face challenges. If you are in for a long term, the challenges will be mitigated over a period of time. It will not happen overnight. But if your vision is to stay in the long term, then vision is critical. And then be stuck up on that, be very focused on that, evolve your strategies. Strategies can change, right? Second, expect you are an expert. There is no doubt about it. But there are 1,000 others also, competition. And that is the strategy, to my mind. Your strategy cannot be that I am the best. The strategy has to be such that keeping your competition in mind. Generally, when we look at all your SWOT analysis or what we do, keep your strategy in mind. Yeah, Byju's is a very classic example in education sector. And when I look at Byju's, the phenomenal growth this organization had, they have been able to create a good impact and the revenue model also. Expect you are in the market and the market is not for you. Means market is not made by you. Market, you are there for the market. Market can crash you anytime, no matter how great you are. And that is precisely what is happening now. Look at COVID, what it has done. In one shot, it has brought the whole world economy to its knees. We're all thinking of how to restart, right? So those are your principles. Stick by your principle. Don't go overboard on your principles. Your value proposition. We hear this word in a lot of corporate world, value propositions. But this is what is your value proposition. Expect you can't have all your services with you. But there are SMEs. Are you exploring? So what happens when I'm actually a small setup today? Let us say for marketing, I may not be having the ability to have a marketing person on board and pay him a $500,000 crore salary to generate a business. I may outsource it to a marketing organization for a fee, for a commission or whatever. But that marketing organization is also a part of you. Bring the marketing organization that you're engaging onto your vision. Onto your vision. Align him here. And make sure that you are able to collaborate. There has to be a trust element, because I see in smaller setup, trust is a big issue. There is a lot of insecurity, data challenges, data robbery, I would call it, in that sense. So you got to know how to really collaborate over here and get all your outsourced partners to be playing the same role that you are playing, right? Expect you would be required to multitask. So don't expect a client is only going to tell you do this. Be ready that you have to do multitask, and that's your maturity, right? You got to be mature enough. If 25 years of experience or 30 years of experience is not going to make you mature, then you're not in the right game. This is not a game which will happen overnight. This is a game of persistence, perseverance, as you call it. So your maturity will matter a lot. Expect you need to build experience and not the number of service. Number of clients and number of contracts executed will not matter in the long run or in the immediate run. What will matter is what kind of experience you're giving, because one good experience will help you build 10 other clients for you also. Remember that. But stick to building experience. Give them that kind of that's competitive advantage, right? What you are doing, as we said earlier, others are also doing. Numerous players are there. What differentiates you from the other person? And that's the experience, correct? Expect pricing is for quality and not for expertise. Assertive solutions, I would say. Because quality matters a lot. Initially, everyone may pay you. But if your services, if your quality is not great, it's not making what I call, doesn't give an alarm bell. It's not going to be a money spinner for you in the long run. Be very assertive about your solutions, yeah? And last but not the least, expect you need to make profit. Long-term versus short-term vision has to be built. You are here to make profit. That's a fact. Nobody's here to make losses. The financial independence is there. But how do you build it? How do you go about it? You got to be patient in this game. Clients will have 1,001 expectation, but this is how you build your financial independence. And this is it. So this is the reality. Please, you have to embrace it. Whether you're a small time firm or a big time firm. Today, all big organizations are re-embracing the re-COVID situations, are re-engineering, innovating, building new perspectives. That's because the reality has changed. And final recommendation that I will give you is embrace it. Complaints are a reality. Challenges are a reality. Customer expectations are reality. You started your company. You better be prepared to face this. There's nothing called, there's no magic formula for retention of client. Can you give incentive programs? Can you give incentive awards? Can you give incentives to people when you're just starting? It is not possible. You're a small setup. What you can give is experience, quality, assertiveness. So that's your reality. Accept that reality. Plug any leaks. Reflective. Okay, you have done a work with the client. What is the reflection you're getting? What is the feedback you're getting? Reflect. The third most important thing, understand your customer value. The ROE, return on equity, that a customer pledges for when he engages your services, because for him that services will give counterproductive. For him the services will become counterproductive in his organization. Are you thinking on those lines? And are you thinking only about the pain? Don't talk about the pain now. For some time, for 2-3 years, forget about the pain. Accept the pain. Keep your principles very relevant. Don't make it at the altar of ego, or take it at the altar level of, epitome of altar, as you call it. Make it relevant. It has to be relevant to the context that you are dealing with. Reach out. You will have difference of opinions. Your customer will not agree with you. Reach out. Don't leave it. You don't build clients on the basis of that. You got to keep going back to the client. Keep trying. I remember rejecting somebody in the first year of my experience. After 5 years, I gave the contract back to the person. I gave the contract back to the person. Why? Because he kept on following up with me. Though his services were not good in the initial, but over a period of time when he improved, he kept on connecting, kept on engaging, reconciled to the fact that we were not great, and yes, now we are different. Made me convinced, give me one chance, and we saw it, and it was true. They had made it. So reconcile the fact. Customer calendar is how you put your customer in front of you. That is the repose, the faith the customer has in you. Make sure you believe in that. Make sure you put the customer in that. And finally, measure everything. ROI, return on investment, whatever you have started with, you have to measure. Many a times, small time firms or earlier startups think we need to scale up, we need to build up, we need to have maximum acquisitions. Yes, you need to have maximum acquisition. Are you doing the ROI of it? Then suddenly when COVID happens, then you're suddenly caught up with a non-starter vehicle, as you call it. Your ROI has to be very much practically questioned, reviewed, viewed, discussed, debated with you or with your teams constantly, so that it keeps you in the radar, it keeps you on the focus. Right? Thank you. So I want to end up with what Mark Zuckerberg has said, founders for founders. If you don't believe in your mission, giving up is easy. The majority of founders give up. That happened. But the best founders never give up. And he's one of them. Right? We all know his story, how he has started. So client retention is not a problem to me. Client retention problem is more when I think the problem is there. But I got to rise above the problem. I got to think from the other side and react. Why? Because I have decided that I want to be of service. I am going to provide these services. So then why the hell I should quit? Then I should quit completely and get back to corporate. Right? That's how it is. But when you have started on an entrepreneurial journey, your mindset has to be 120% or 100% in it. Stick and strive. Right? Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah. And I'm willing to take up the questions. Savio, thank you so much.
Thank you, Agnello. Thank you so much for this lovely session. Actually, I was just going through your last slide, and I, in fact, took a picture of that. So, if you could just go back to your last slide, we were actually discussing a couple of tips, and I found some of them really practical. But you know, a lot of small-time entrepreneurs will come back to you, and they might ask you, you know, how do we identify leaks. You spoke of plugging the leaks. How do we identify the leaks before they happen? Is this a preemptive measure or this is a course corrective measure? How would you want to put that?
See, I would say it is always a preemptive, because reactive is very easy, but preemptive is always being like keeping a third eye, the third eye open. You always got to keep your third eye, keep on engaging. Is it okay? Is it making sense? Or is it not making sense? Point is, when you are probing and you are being what I call inquisitive, as you call it, trying to know what's happening, then the leaks will be lesser. Okay, so that's what I mean. When plug the leak, try to be proactive rather than reactive.
At the same time, don't you think that this would sort of encourage a lot of you know encourage the spirit of being overly predictive about what's going to happen and not really go with the flow and so as to speak, let your business take over. But you don't have to be in control of everything. Do you think this could lead into that trap?
Uh, no, it depends on how you really plan your organization and how do you plan your work. Because one of the things that I see in leadership, which also I've seen, is how much of it are you being delegatory and how much of it being controlling. So many a time I've seen when you are controlling, this problem becomes acute. But when you have delegated and you're trying to probe in or trying to be proactive, you are actually being more engaging. And so it doesn't become. So that's very critical. So if you can manage that, then it's a positive step. Yeah, but if you badly manage it, then it can become a negative step.
Of course.
Yeah.
To the rest of
Yeah.
the people who are out here, if you have any questions, any suggestions, you can.
Yeah. I can see Yashad asking, can you please explain a bit more on ROE, customer value? How would an organization factor that in overall business plan? Good question. I like that, because your return on equity is basically what your clients' propositions are always. When they're trying to put up a solution, whether it is for market sharpness or market reach or employee sharpness or productivity, there's always the ROE that the organization is told to be giving to the shareholders, to the customers, to the various investors. Somebody had spoken about the investors. Shivat had spoken about the investor in the beginning. So your investors are always asking return, right? So if you think through from that angle, then your customer value proposition will be far more relevant, because you will understand why the customer is trying to put up this solution through you, right? And you will also be a part of that solutioning, not a service provider then. See, that's what I'm saying. You got to rise above the service provider thought process and get into a solutioning mode, into the customer's shoes, and try to understand why is he doing that. Then you'll be able to understand the ROE bit. Yeah. And that will really make a sense to your overall business plan, simply because the customer will see an investment return coming by partnering with you, and then he would like to be more engaged. Yeah, that's what I see, Nishad, what I feel. Then Vasu is asking me how you identify
To
client
identify clients' expectations.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that is when I said, no, when you say the problem statement, when you're sitting for discussion for a problem statement, that is what I call understanding client expectation. You got to, why I called it problem statement in a better psychological term, simply because you are there listening, and you are not providing solution. You are listening first. Many a times we have seen, oh, you need home loan, I'll give you this. Oh, you need this soap, I'll give you this soap. But don't get into that mode. Okay, you need this soap. Why do you need this soap? For whom you need this soap? Who are they? So therefore you can say, HLL in the beginning, when they was trying to do this Lifebuoy soap, and those of us who know, in the beginning, had actually done this whole research through management students on the rural sector of India and all as well as the urban sector, to find out what kind of soap and why would they need and what is the price they're willing to pay. And that's how Lifebuoy stuck around for so many years, right? Many of us used it. So expect that from this, yeah. And Shivat is right. Shivat is writing, expectation of ROE of investors is to get ROIC of about 15% over 3 years in normal market. It should be more than what return you get from normal FDR. Yeah, you're right. I think Srivats has put up a very good solution. Generally, your client investors will start buffering in a lot of percentage of year-on-year increase. So how are you understanding that part? And as a small company, are you able to understand that aspect when you are being a solution partner to a large conglomerate or large organization? And generally, intellect at that level is tested a lot. And if you are going there to meet up the client, you must go well prepared in these aspects. So that will really help you build your case very strongly. And as I said in the beginning, your years of experience, your network is only be able to open the door for you. But when you sit across for conversation, this is what really make a lot of difference as to how do you really understand the customer's pain point? How does the customer wants to see his organization grow? And why does he see you in this entire scheme of things? Whatever services you're giving, you need to see the entire scheme of things. And that is what is very critical. Yeah. Good. Any more questions, have you? Any more thoughts? I like this. Srivad has written
Yeah,
very well. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'm just going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, going back a couple of slides ago, where my friend Yashad actually asked you about one of the client expectations is to be available 24/7 by
Yeah.
365,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I would like you to elaborate a little bit more about that, because a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of small time entrepreneurs, they fall for this, they fall into this trap, and a lot of people in my own industry, very good friends of mine, are sacrificing weekends, sacrificing private time, personal time, family time for servicing clients, and
Hmm.
it really is detrimental to their relationship with the client. So would you like to elaborate further on this?
Yeah. So there was a thing that I stated about 60% stated and 40% not stated. See, I will tell you one thing. This when you're starting and when you're small, clients will generally try to squeeze you. Let me be very honest about it. They will try to squeeze you simply because they know it is your need and they know you want to sell service. But at the same time, you also need to be aware that these are not your long-term problem. They will be your initial teething problems. Maybe till the time you do a setup for 1 year at least, this could be your teething problem. Yeah, but how do you really get out of that would be over a period of time to happen. But at the first instance, as I said, when you're meeting the client and customer, and when you will have 2 or 3 rounds of discussion, try to get as much as information, try to get as much as understanding of the situation. Then the very other thing is understanding the character or the personality of the client that you're dealing with. Very important. You need to know that whom you're dealing with. Yeah. So uh, be aware of that and try to align it, and maybe once, maybe twice it will happen. But if it happening concurrently, then I think you must be also able to tell the client, "Hey, look, I would appreciate you to help you out, but if you could just spare me at this moment of time, because this is my uh, at family and all." So I don't think nobody will be really that depressing. But if you are over committing, I have seen the other way around. If you are over committing, then the problem is acute. Then you should not overcommit. Secondly, you should not ever say that, okay, look, I will provide service any time of the day. These are things. That's what I'm saying. The known stated and the unstated has to be clearly told. When you tell that, then the problem doesn't happen. If you are committed and you say, I will deliver in, say, 24 hours, then you must deliver in 24 hours, come what may. The moment you start getting into 24 into 48, 48 into 60, that's when the client starts getting a heck and back on you, saying, calling you 10 times and maybe, following up with you. So give that uh, clarity very well. Secondly, let's be practical here. You got to accept this. This is going to be there. I'm not sure it's going to be so acute, but yes, here and there it will happen. But you'll have to learn to manage it, because you are starting. Learn to manage it and manage it effectively by being practical about your analysis, practical about customers' needs, customers' expectations. Get that thing factored in very, very well, document it, and engage. Engage a lot. That's the only solution. There is no other solution that can really come about. It's about how you build relationships, right? It's about how you build
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. We've gotten some feedback. Actually, Srivaths has added to what you said. Response time is critical,
Yeah.
and customers are empathetic. They give you time for solution. Very true.
Absolutely.
I've personally come across a couple of them who are very empathetic to our situations
Yes,
and
I'm
to our
sure
concerns.
about it. Yes.
And yeah, so it's all about open communication and talking
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
as an equal to them.
I'm
Uh,
sure. I'm sure because a customer also understands that you are starting
yeah.
out and that you don't have. But it's how you present your case first in the time,
Mm.
and how you
Yeah.
take along, and how do you manage that relationship.
Yeah.
It's just that part which is communication and engagement, which I see, which many of us think is not relevant, maybe or may not be thinking important. But that's what we do all the time. Yeah. So take that as a process and monitor it. That's how it. What I call it is monitoring is very important.
Yeah.
So
So I think we've already come to the end of our session today. Thank you so much, Agnello.
yeah,
Just before we go, I just want you to take a couple of minutes and talk to us a little bit about Procademy, so that and what our viewers currently can expect out of the sessions coming going forward from here. And yeah, and then afterwards we'll
uh,
please take it away.
yeah. The Procademy basically what I've started this firm is into organizational development and leadership development. I've always believed that with my time that I've spent, I can really create value proposition for organizations in this space. So I've stuck on to that. So I'm very clear and focused. Procademy does a lot of work and a lot of research today in managerial and leadership developments. Most of my colleagues who are a part of me, Ashish had done a session the other day, and we are all coming with huge tons of experience, and we understand how leadership and how managerial development needs to happen. So we're very focused and we're very clear. We'll do work around that. At the same time, we try help organizations to understand what kind of culture and what kind of organization they need to build. So we try to give a consulting element over there and help organizations to become far more effective, productive. We do a lot of work in the banking and financial sector, IT sector, pharma. We have started some, and even in the education sector, we are doing a lot of work. We are helping schools also. We are helping education institutes to develop more corporatish approach to learning and development and skilling of their staff and teachers and all of them. So overall, Procademy is about creating effective workforce for a higher productivity with passion, right? Passion is very important. We want to make sure passion. I just had a learner who has undergone a workshop who's of almost 75, 76 years of age. And at this age, the person thinks that he or she needs to learn to make a change in the organization, and that's a good beginning, right? So that is what Procademy is all about. It's all about personal experience that we have got. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I look
Thanks a
forward
lot.
to many of you joining us. Do follow us on our website, and we do have a lot of blogs which we keep writing in a month. And we have themes every month. We build conversations around themes. This month has been a theme of decisive skills, and we've been talking about all of decisive skills, how critical is decision making. And a lot of you as leaders are going to make a lot of decisions now in this COVID.
I think we have lost Agnel over there, but uh, I'll just say, I'll just try and reiterate what he was trying to say. So yeah, Procademy is all about passion to performance. We are available on most social media platforms. We are available on Facebook as well as on LinkedIn. That's facebook.com/Procademy Consulting, Procademy Consultancy. And LinkedIn
Sure,
also, we are known as
Mr.
Procademy
Shobhit.
Consultancy. I'm so sorry, Agnello, we had lost you in the run-up to whatever we are just talking about right now. Anyway, as discussed by Agnello, the theme this month is about decisiveness. We have written up a couple of blogs on decisiveness. You can go and check them out on our website, which is procademy.co.in, procademy.co.in. And if you do want to connect with us, talk to us about the work that we are doing
Yeah,
and
I
partner with
just
us. Hey,
yeah.
Agnello, you're back. Yeah, yeah. Please, please, please. Yeah, I was just actually ending the session, talking to our viewers about the work that we are doing, and if they want to be a part of the work that we are doing or
Yes,
to be a
yes,
part of our webinar, please do write into us. You can
yeah.
write into us on our social media handles. We are on Facebook and LinkedIn, as I said, and we are very soon coming up on YouTube as well. So please do write into us. You can
Yes.
write into Agnello at agnello.joseph@procademy.co.in, procademy.co.in, and yeah, we'll be more than happy to if you have anything to share, your experiences, your even if you want to talk about how passionate you have been with your work and share that with the world, please come on board. We'd love to have webinars. We would love to have sessions with you. We'd love to talk about your business and how and sort of engage in a conversation with how we can partner with people like you and bring your passion and lead that into performance. Agnello, any closing words before we end our session?
No, right now I think I've spoken a lot. So thank you so much for everybody, and yeah, do keep looking out, and yes, you can be a part of any of our webinars if you'd like to conduct. We'll be more than happy to share a topic because we do promote solopreneurs. In fact, we are coming up with a very strong article on solopreneurs, and where every month we feature around one or two solopreneurs who are doing excellent well. So do look out for that, right? Thank you
Before
so
we
much.
end, Shubham has raised his hand. Shubham, I'm so sorry we are at the end of our session, but please do write into us. You can email us back. You might have gotten an email from one of us. So please do write it to us back, and Agnello will make sure to respond to your queries. I'm so sorry. My apologies. Thank you so much. Been lovely talking to all of you guys, and thank you once again, Agnello. We'll see you on another webinar on another day. This is Savio signing off. Thank you once again.